A mangaka, Boichi, is eating a melon pan. This melon pan is delicious. Hey, Mr. Director, try some. It's really good.
Thank you. I'll just try some.
Hello, everyone. Please enjoy your snack too while watching the video. This peanut is also delicious. Today, among the elements for costume and hairstyle design, the most important ones, about those orthodox elements. What are the most important things in costume and hairstyle design? Those are character setting and story. Sounds too obvious? Yeah, I know it's too obvious. But these two obvious things are you should always think about and keep in mind. Always think. And things to keep in mind. Characters are also set according to the story. This is the method of orthodox storytelling. Sometimes, the character is designed first, and then the story is created afterward. However, even if the order of creation is changed, ultimately, the characters need to be readjusted to fit the story. Character setting is determined by the story. The crucial aspect of designing the character setting is the character's personality and its role. To explain this in an orthodox manner, character setting is based on the story. Personality and role derive from the character setting. These aspects serve as the primary inspirations for character design, and the objective of design, and the goal of design. Imagine designing the house you'd want to live in. Consider the purpose of the house, the preferences of its residents. How many people will live there? Depending on their lifestyle preferences, the house should be designed accordingly, right? What if you build a house with the mindset that it only needs to look good? What would happen? If you install a waterfall fountain in a 90 square meter house just to make it look cool for a large family to live in, you and your family would end up having to sleep while getting wet from the waterfall. The house may look cool, but it would become incredibly difficult for people to live in. The same goes for manga design. It has to be livable. For what? The story. The story must come alive. Alright, now that we've finished pondering over the story and characters, is it time to start the design? No, not yet. We need to think of the motif. Designing requires recalling the motif. Then what exactly is the motif means? Motif is somewhat similar to inspiration. It serves as the source of ideas or a mindset. Once you've considered the source of ideas, you've thought about the motif, then you're ready to start designing. If you've thought about the story, character setting, and motif, you're ready for the practical aspect of designing characters. Until then, you can indulge in snacks like chocolate and ice cream and watch movies, or Googling. Some may even elegantly brainstorm ideas while enjoying wine on a serene island like Bali. But unfortunately, we can't do that. Anyway, once the motif for character design is established, the actual design work, the practical aspect, begins. So, what kind of motifs should we consider? For example, designing the character based on a spider. There's a brainstorm that just comes to your mind, right? Especially for the director who enjoys watching anime. When it comes to designing female characters or female-type robots, everyone seems to like this motif. Cats! Doesn't the motif suddenly become clear? I think you'll completely understand. Or rabbits.
Oh yeah, I completely understand.
Characters based on cats and rabbits are actually quite numerous. You don't have to design based on animals as motifs. Real-life individuals are also an option. Real-life figures or historical figures. For example, historical figures like the invaders or conquerors, or the heroes who defended their country and nation against them. If we're talking about frequently used motifs, real-life figures with a strong charisma, such as actors and actresses, celebrities, singers, and etc. The real individuals or the iconic characters from other works are often used as motifs. Everything is possible. For example, you could design costumes based on melon pan. a melon pan version of the Boichi avatar character. It's a completely new design. A melon pan. That's a next-level idea. I like it. Or peanuts could also be a motif. Even the peanuts I'm enjoying right now, which have expired 5 months ago, could serve as a motif for a new character. In Dr. Stone, there's a character named Stanley. When Inagaki-sensei described Stanley's combat suit as like, Stan is an American soldier who wakes up from the petrification. When I heard the concept of Stanley the first time, immediately in my mind, in the American jungle, no human there except a US soldier hiding in a primeval forest. Then it hit my head, holy that's Predator. I thought of the movie called Predator. And the new arc is set in America. I wanted to respect American history. I imagined the Native Americans. With these two motifs of Predator and Native Americans, I designed Stanley's combat suits. That's the design concept behind Stanley's combat suits. When considering design, the environment is crucial. Environment. It's part of the character's setting and the situation they're facing. And yes, it's related to the story, but personally, it's beneficial to think of it separately. Every element in the manga is interconnected to the story. From a single stroke of the pen, a dot, to a single piece of screen tone, everything must exist for the sake of the story, and anything unrelated to the story should be removed whenever possible. That implies they might exist for various reasons. The environment could be, is it like the real world where we live right now? Or a world where science has greatly advanced by the 25th century? Or a fantasy world reminiscent of 14th century Europe? Even though it's a fictional world, it might have a vibe similar to the 14th century Europe. Or it could be a post-apocalyptic world after humanity has vanished. These kinds of worlds also exist. There's no strict rule that the protagonist must acquire the costume themselves. Someone else could give it to them, like Cinderella. An example of how the material of the costume connects the environment and character traits. We should consider whether the material is deer leather, alien technology, or a missile given by a genius when designing. We should consider these things when designing. As we brainstorm motifs and proceed with the practical aspect of design, these considerations shape the creation process. The iconic character in the Marvel Universe, Tony Stark for example, he is super rich, not only wealthy and resourceful, but his Iron Man technology is also incredibly advanced. His genius is limitless. In the Iron Man movies, real-world technology is the backbone, and adding science fiction elements is still easily understood by audiences. In the early stages of Dr. Stone, Senku finds himself in a world abundant with natural resources. However, the resources available to him personally are extremely limited. Nevertheless, Senku possesses a genius intellect. Senku's genius intellect and harsh natural environment were taken into account when designing his leather outfit, but his hairstyle is an exception. Senku's hairstyle is, his hair requires several cans of hair wax and hairspray to maintain. He woke up 3,700 years after the petrification events. Where would he find wax and hairspray in the stone world? There's no shampoo or conditioner to wash the hair. So, these practical risks were only considered for the costume. But the hairstyle was made an exception. Why was the hairstyle an exception? Because it follows the genre and trends. The hairstyle and design are based on the genre and trends. Hairstyles consider genres and trends more than the environment. I've actually thought about it a lot. Should it be completely realistic? Even the costumes aren't entirely environmentally considered. I pondered with the dilemma of whether to make it completely realistic or not. Like using the costume, then remaking it after it wears out, so it becomes new again. But my editor mentioned that consistency of the character is more important than realism. But you shouldn't misunderstand here. You shouldn't assume that all characters in Shonen Jump are like that. I'm talking about that this is the case with Dr. Stone. The fourth factor to consider when designing is engineering and data. What does engineering mean? If hairstyles and costumes were to be made in the real world, for example, if you are a cosplayer actually tries your favorite manga and anime characters, or if we assume this is the real world, these are the things to consider. Simply put, it's the structure or material of the costume and hairstyle. Let me ask you a question. Is a hat part of the costume or the hairstyle? In my opinion, in manga, hats are about 80% a type of hairstyle, while the remaining 20% could be considered part of the costume in styles that pursue realism. These could be categorized as materials for hairstyles. Various props can also be part of hairstyles, and there are functional items as well. For Senku, here is Senku. It looks like Senku has turned to stone because it's gray. Senku's clothes have bags instead of pockets. The number of bags here increases or decreases. How it's designed is, when Senku senses the situation is becoming dangerous, the number of bags increases. When Senku feels safe, the number of bags decreases. The material of Senku's bags is unrelated to the environment he's in. Senku can make the bags whenever he wants. In such costumes, bags signify functionality more than environmental considerations. With Senku's bag, Senku can create various things wherever he goes. When you read the manga Dr. Stone or watch TV anime series, you might wonder where Senku gets all those chemicals and tools come from, right? They're all stored in his bag. Senku's bag is a functional item. At the meeting, when Inagaki-sensei discussed how he would progress the story, I realized that for Senku to be able to express any story, regardless of my knowledge, the Senku's bags had to be an important item. It's a functional design, and it also reflects realism. Typically, the feasibility, whether something is realistically possible or not, is usually set at a certain level. You need to proceed by considering such aspects and creating engineering elements. Where can it move from and how? What's its durability like? Is it bulletproof or not? How much damage does it inflict on the character during battle, and so on? These are the factors that need to be taken into account. That's how the design process unfolds. Next is data. Data is extremely important for design. I mentioned earlier that I spent a month collecting data and practicing drawing blonde long waves specifically for my one-shot story. Love that universe, didn't I? That's the type of research conducted for design. In my case, to express the hair of the blonde long waves, I gathered women's fashion and beauty magazines and tore out pages. Most of the pages I collected featured photos of Claudia Schiffer. She was an extremely famous and legendary supermodel in the 90s. I collected her photos to use as reference material. For costume design, what's crucial is data, research, or my own collection of materials. If needed, we could even go out for photos and gather information. When you're pressed for time with design, you might want to research for inspiration for the motif through travel or research. Also, you might need to conduct research or gather data to create engineering and environmental details. However, in reality, the manga industry doesn't have the time or resources for such endeavors. If I introduce a new character, Stanley, in Dr. Stone for the next chapter, and I want to research for inspiration for him, would it be okay for me to take a month off from Dr. Stone to travel and gain inspiration and understanding and design for the new character, Stanley, from my editor and the story writer, Inagaki-sensei? In the middle of the deadline? Nonsense, right? Some designers might be able to do that. But is it feasible for me to explore the jungles of America to find inspiration for the character design? Would it be reasonable for me to travel to Europe for costume details? Of course I can't. In reality, I only had 5 minutes to find inspiration for Stanley's motif, the movie Predator, Native Americans. All right, get it. Let's start. Other than that, Stanley's design does consider some engineering aspects, but there aren't many. What else were considered? The American colony can use steel. Also, while it's not explicitly stated in the story, but I considered the existence of oil somewhere. Due to technological limitations, they can't extract a lot of oil, but there is an oil field in near the colony. This setting is something I didn't even discuss in the book, so you're probably hearing about it for the first time here. I discussed it with my editor. There needs to be an inherited aspect for it to make sense, which is why steel and oil can be used in the American colony. Apart from that, it wasn't given much consideration. I wish I could devote more time to study and contemplation, but in reality, time makes it difficult. So I proposed 8 design elements for character hairstyles and costumes. Of course, there are more than just 8 elements. There are some more. You should consider the elements you need for your own designs. In the next video, I'll utilize these 8 elements and let's design the characters together. Make sure to have your sketchbook and pencil ready for the next video. Thanks for watching.